Welcome everyone to Inverse Happy Hour. My name is Jake, and we've got Johnnie Christmas today, the comic book creator and New York Times best-selling writer behind Tartarus, his new series, which he's going to read a bit to us later today. He also worked on Alien 3, based on William Gibson's script. He worked with Margaret Atwood on Angel Catbird. He created Firebug, Sheltered. He's a really cool comic book creator. I'm really excited to talk to him, and I'm really excited to hear some of Tartarus with, I think, some voices possibly. Is that correct?
We'll see how it turns out.
But first, how are you doing, Johnny? I know you're in an undisclosed location. You got a cabin.
That's right. I'm doing okay. I'm on writing deadline, so this is not my house. So I'm in an undisclosed location, as you said, hunkering down, trying to get some writing done. I got the stovepipe, the wood furnace rather. I got some flowers. I got, of course, this being happy hour, I've got the rum. So
very good. I've got a little whiskey here with some pineapple ginger.
Fantastic. Since this is not my house, I don't have the rocks glasses that, like my rocks glasses. So I'm going to have to do it kind of run and gun, old school, mason jar,
I like it.
That's how it's going to go down today.
Well, if you're tuning in, we got Johnnie Christmas here talking about Tartarus and comics. If you have any questions for him about his work or just, working in comics in general, I'm sure you'd be happy to answer them. I did want to ask you something about Tartarus, which I know issue 3 is coming out very soon. It's been really successful already. June 17th, right?
That's correct.
And Tartarus is this great sci-fi story, totally, far away from our world. It's also an Afrofuturistic story. Almost all the characters are black, and not all of them.
Yeah, a huge majority of them. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, what appeals to you about Afrofuturism as an aesthetic, as a storytelling tool? What is it about that style that you like?
It's just another a basket of stuff that you can use that we don't have a lot of in our storytelling, because a lot of our storytelling, especially when it comes to future or past, tends to lean European, using those influences. But so it's just this wealth of stuff from the African diaspora that we can use, and that that isn't seen, which is very important to be seen. And so I think it's just not only fun, it's like useful. It's very useful, and I think it'll set the stage for the next stage of comic book artists and writers who want to tell stories about the African diasporic experience that doesn't have anything really to do with race. So it's not about the Black experience as in relation to other, groups, but as people with hopes, fears, loves, all on our own, not in relation to.
I like it. So you're saying eventually we'll get to a point where it's the style, the unique style visually of that world is more important than the race of people? Is that the crux of it?
Yeah, I think it'll be much like how when we see a sword and sorcery work, and it's based, ancient Europe, but no one ever talks about the whiteness of the people in there.
Right.
It's just people. They got problems, and they've got a dilemma, and they've got a dragon to fight, and that's what it's. Whereas I think where a lot of art that is greenlit, I should say, there's a lot of Black art, a lot of wonderful Black art, but the stuff that is greenlit that people want to, that those who have a say in greenlighting things want to see is in, or like through the white gaze, or in some way relating to being in tandem, in relationship to whiteness, and into these ideas of this construct of race, instead of valid experiences from any perspective, from any groups of people,
Absolutely. It's almost, we can get to a point where it's a genre in itself, which would be great.
Yeah, it already is.
It is, and it'll become the bigger genre, I guess is the right way to say it.
Yeah.
When you're creating this, when you were creating the story, what came first, the sci-fi or the Afrofuturism? Like, how did those develop alongside each other?
It was sci-fi, and the Afrofuturism wasn't really a thought. It's just I looked in the mirror and
Sure.
I thought about my family and I thought about people I know, right? So I
Hmm.
populated a world with people I knew. So it wasn't as conscious a choice as it might appear,
Sure.
because to me, I'm just black. I'm just that's I don't know. It was not a great leap.
Absolutely.
And as for the sci-fi, I had the story about this warlord, and I had the story about this kid of this warlord, and like legacies and stories that were told. So one person's warlord might be another person's freedom fighter, and
Hmm.
what is told to the kid of this warlord when she's thrown into this world, and she finds out that her mom was this warlord. And as she gets deeper into the world, she starts seeing different nuances and different she gets new information. So she has to either uphold, law and order, or pick up her mother's dark crown and you know, raise all
Ooh.
kinds of hell. And as we'll see in the reading, we're going to start with her mother, Circa, who is this warlord um, in the world, and we start with her prison break. Um, yeah.
Nice. Sounds really cool. So I've also seen Tartarus described as Star Wars meets Breaking Bad. That seems to be like the line people use, which is like, yeah, 100%, I'm in. I'm curious. I assume that you're like a pretty big sci-fi fan yourself if you're writing these
Yeah.
kind of stories. So on the note of Star Wars, what do you prefer, Star Wars or Star Trek? Tough one.
um, shit, man. Uh, it's hard, It's hard. I would say, in terms of like punchiness, Star Wars.
Yeah,
And they're built as different animals. One's, before the coming of Mandalorian, Star Wars was these 2 minute epic, 2 hour epic installments. So they get a
yeah,
lot of information. So you had to work archetypically, or they had to work archetypically. Whereas Star Trek, it was serialized. So you had hours and hours. So you can do much more character based stuff. So I guess it's more of a question of whether you want science fantasy with archetypes or science fiction with character driven plots and dilemma of the week.
yeah.
As you can see, I'm spinning my wheels trying not to answer your question.
It's true what
Um,
you. I feel like what you said here is like the Mandalorian kind of gets the best of both worlds, right?
yeah,
It's that Star Wars punchiness, Old West style, but you're still like it's in episodes, and you get these characters you get to learn more about. I mean, I thought the Mandalorian was amazing for that
yeah,
reason.
totally amazing. It's the first time we got to see Star Wars characters that didn't have to be going somewhere. You
Yeah,
know, like he had to be going somewhere. Yeah, but you could take your time as he walked across this beautiful scenic landscape because it was serialized. They had time to kind of. He didn't have to talk the plot because because you had enough time to watch him, so you could kind of see what his intentions are without him having to tell you. So it was a wonderful way of seeing that Star Wars could work with
yeah.
serialized, character-driven kind of approach. So I'm very much looking forward to the next one.
Can't
Um,
wait. Plus, Baby Yoda. What's not to
yeah,
love?
you can't lose with Baby Yoda, man.
So let me just ask you, as a fan, for the movies, like, what do you think they should do next? Let's say you could pitch something to Disney. You're like, here's the next Star Wars movie because we don't know anything about what's coming next there.
What would I say next? I would say to get away from the Skywalker
Yeah,
um,
enough of the
one
Skywalkers.
or the Palpatine legacy, however you want to look at it. Uh, let's see new corners of the world. Like I want to see like what they did with the Mandalorian. I loved seeing this like different segments of this world. And of course, the Skywalker Palpatine thing is really wonderful in terms of what they're trying to do with the archetypal kind of thing, because it's
Mhm.
very powerful. I see my friend Tim voting for Star Trek. And
Sorry,
so
Tim.
yeah, I don't know. Let's see something else. Let's
I'm
do
into
something.
it. into it. I know you also worked on Alien 3. You did the art for Alien 3, correct?
Yeah, and I got the pleasure of adapting William Gibson's script into comic book graphic novel form.
Yeah, I mean, so William Gibson, is a legend, obviously. I'm curious, what was that process like? Were you working with him, or were you just sort of handed off the script? How did that happen?
Yeah, so I took his screenplay, and then I broke it down into 5 different installments, and I had to there's certain parts where you want to make kind of a cliffhanger so people come back for the next month's issue or whatever.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to mess with it too much because people have been waiting for this thing a long time. So I didn't want to, put my thumbprints all over it. I wanted to facilitate the story instead of trying to, get in the way. So what I did was, I'd break it down and then I would send him everything, all notes of all my changes and the reasons why, and try to use those changes, not really change, but I try to use those changes in a way that would facilitate the story so that they seemed invisible, So much like if that script was handed off to a director would have to translate it into a visual medium. I wanted to translate it into a visual way that got to the spirit of what Bill was trying to say, instead of I wanted to say what he wanted to get his thoughts across without getting in the way. So I wanted to, but I also wanted him to take a look at it and make sure that there weren't any changes that I made that he had a deeper reason for that wasn't evident at the time of the reading of the script. But it was fun. It was great. I got to have coffee with him and
Wow.
great dude and just very very generous in terms of just oh, cool, yeah, you want to do that? Great, it makes sense, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it
Yeah.
seems to me like turning a movie script into a comic must be so much more difficult than just getting the comic book script from someone and turning that into art. I mean, because you're turning directions and dialogue into a visual medium. It's drawn instead of filmed. How much of a challenge is that, or did you find it actually to be kind of natural?
His script was really well written, so it was it wasn't that hard. It was like you say, if this was handed over to a director, a lot of the choices would then be made by the director. Would make a certain set of choices, but then set deck department would make different choices, and then the actors would come in and make a whole different set of choices with the words on the script. So it required a whole set of choices from a bunch of different perspectives, which is what you do when you're making comics. You're the actor, you're the lighting department, you're
The whole crew.
Yeah. So it was interesting. I had to compartmentalize me, the script adapter, and kind of think about me, the artist, who's going to be coming, but also not be derelict in my duty as script adapter, just to try and save the other guys, me as the artist.
Yeah.
Hide, right? I had to do my best on each, and then if artist Johnny found a problem that he had to deal with, then he had to deal with it at that point. But that wasn't adapter Johnny's issue.
Sure, that's his problem. So you said a second ago you had coffee with William Gibson, which I'm just extremely jealous to hear. This guy, I mean, Gibson, if anyone listening is not super familiar, is basically considered to be the creator of cyberpunk. I'm curious, do you feel like you learned anything? Did he impart any wisdom to you as a storyteller, as a creative person?
From the stuff that, just from what I gleaned from his working on a script, because once you get to break down someone's script and reimagine it for a different medium and then draw that, you start getting kind of, you get the feel for beats. But in terms of just one-on-one, person to person, it was just, what I learned from him was just kind of how, I don't know, he was really cool, man. He was this guy who's done it all for decades and decades, and he was just a normal guy who was really into telling great stories still, not just I did this thing and I had a every time he's coming for it, and it was really inspiring that to keep doing your best all the time, like 100%. It was really inspiring too. And same with, you know, with my time working with Margaret on stuff like it's Margaret
another
Atwood.
legend, yeah.
Just it's really inspiring to be around folks who've had very long creative careers and are still hungry to make great creative work. So I take that with me. You know, I am very privileged to have the example of their, you know, of their example.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're gonna get to the reading in a second. If you have any questions for Johnny, please let us know now before it's too late. I have one more question from my producer, Evan, who wants to know, as an expert in the alien universe, do you think the movie Prometheus was a good movie?
Oh, you bastards. You're gonna get me on record with this? Like that's another one I've been moonwalking around for years, you know, and in private conversations having them. But yes, I think it was a good movie. It's a different movie. It's not
how people want it, yeah.
It's not an alien movie, and the fact that the what do they call it, the deacon or whatever, the alien prototype that they have at the end felt like Attack On. Like it should not have been. It should have been just this weird sci-fi movie about, you know, they could have backed into the alien lore really nicely.
Totally.
It could have just this completely bizarre thing about origins of life and, you know, the will of creators versus the will of life to be what will be, that sort of thing. It should have been. It was trying to do too much.
Yeah.
It was trying to be a philosophical work, but it was also trying to be a bit of horror entertainment, and it didn't quite succeed that way. But I appreciate that.
I agree.
Yeah. So what?
Yeah, I think it was an interesting movie. Maybe trying to do too much. Maybe it didn't even need to be an alien movie. I will say, I think Michael Fassbender in that is like one of my favorite performances of all time. It's incredible.
Yeah. That guy, every time he shows up,
he's a legend.
There have been movies of his where, like, you know, the thing comes out and I'm like, okay, yeah, all right, you know, another X-Men movie, all right, cool, yeah, they're going fast, great, whatever. Then I see Fassbender and I'm like, I'm in. Like, I don't, you know, no matter what happens, he's gonna be good. So yeah, like, and like he was fantastic in it. Like he was the soul of that movie.
Absolutely.
And it seems like they're not gonna do the third installment, is what it looks like. But I hope they do, just so I can see what the David character was trying to do, and I want to see Fassbender in that role again.
Yeah, 100%. All right, we have a question from the audience, which I think is really interesting question. He wants to know, as we get closer to commercial space travel being, you know, an accessible thing, how do you think that will change science fiction?
That's a good question. I think it will. I think the descriptions of spaceflight will get better. That's for sure. I mean, pretty good. Like, I mean, people have done great things, but you know, there was that. What was that? There's an astronaut, and please forgive me, I've forgotten his name. I've forgotten which astronauts, because now we've got a couple of celebrity astronauts. But he was saying that space smells like burnt toast or something like that.
Oh, interesting. I never heard that.
Right? It's just this whole weird little ripple that's now in your brain. And I don't know if he said, I don't know if it was burnt toast, but it was something that is just like, oh, it has a smell. Like if you stick something out of the airlock and you pull it in, it has a smell. Like you just think of space, a void, a cold death leak, but it has a smell. It leaves a smell on stuff, you know. So I think a lot of little experiences like that will happen the more people actually have direct experience, you know. What does it feel like when you're, you know, escaping the bonds of gravity into space? You know, what does that feel like? You know, like we only have a few people who actually know, but now a lot of people will know, and it's going to feel different to a few different people. You know, everybody who's gone up has been, you know, military, athletic, you know, best of health, you know, super strong mind, strong body kind of thing. If you're an average Joe taking that trip, like, what does that do to you? How does that feel?
Right.
You know,
that's in that shape. Also, like, I just want to know, like, I want to get a poet in space. I want to hear, like, their experience.
Yeah, I
That's
want to get,
fascinating.
yeah, or someone who's just like, who's hung over from the night before. You know, not someone who's got like the best of training and the best of blah, blah, blah. Just like some dude who's just kind of some billionaire who's on a bender and he's just like, oh, right, I'm going to space. And he goes up into space and he loses his guts and then he comes back down. I mean, what's that like, you know? And who would,
Yeah,
you know, I don't know.
that sounds
Not
amazing.
that they should be the ones who get all of the space, but if they could tell the story at least, then we'll get something out of it.
That sounds great. I'll do it. I volunteer. Um, all right, one more question from Jamal. Thanks for asking. Jamal asks, as a Black creator, what is your experience working with image, and how did you pitch your ideas?
Uh, um, well, uh, uh, as a Black creator, all of society has problems for Black people, as we Black people know and have known since time immemorial, and 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 as amplified to a lot of people who aren't Black over the course of the last few weeks with the murder of George Floyd. Um, you know, yet again another murder. So so yeah, so there are problems in the comic book industry as well. I mean, it's the problems are all over the place. Um, so that's what I'll say about that. And as for pitching my work to Image, it was what happened was I was working with Brandon Graham on Island. Uh,
Yeah.
he was doing a series called Eight House, which was a sci-fi series. So there were some gaps in between the publishing schedule that he could see coming. So originally, I wanted to pitch him a sci-fi where I would connect the universes between the Eight House
Hmm.
worlds.
Interesting.
But then as their schedule got even further and further away, my ideas of the sci-fi just like they kind of settled on this story of this warlord that I had over here, right? Because the story about the warlord and the coming of the warlord's daughter Tilda was very much like it could have been sci-fi, but it could have been, um, you know, you know the story of John Law, the guy who was like the Scottish rapscallion who was anyway he was this guy who was kind of a near do well, and
Yeah.
but he kind of the character of Barry Lyndon was sort of based on him.
Okay.
So he's kind of just doing his thing, and somehow he ends up in France, and he becomes like the minister of finance or something, and responsible for paper money or something in France, something like that. Don't go
Wow.
down all, but something like that. But he had this crazy life where he did all this crazy stuff, and ends up back in Scotland. I think full of debt. Dies of alcoholism like before the age of 60 or something, like so these like super epic lives. And I was thinking about
Yeah.
Circa the Warlord and her daughter Tilda and all this stuff that can happen in a life. And I thought, oh, this would be really cool in sci-fi. It would amplify all of the drama of these big larger than life characters in a larger than life universe. Like if you expand that not just to the personal, but the personal as reflected outward to the stars, and reverse. I think it could be. I thought it'd be super cool. So that's where the sci-fi element was. Yeah, it's just boundless. Like right now, all the allegories and all the stuff that I'm working on now with future stories are. You can expand it to an entire world, and not just to the familial or the nation state or something like that, right? You could do a whole galaxy. It's really fun and it's really cool, and it allows you to stretch what's possible like way out. It's awesome.
It is awesome. I love even science fiction is endless. It's great. All right. Well, thanks so much for answering all these questions.
No
I want
problem.
to get to this reading. We've been talking for like 20 minutes. Everyone who's still here, let's. So we're gonna do a reading from. This is the beginning of Tartarus. So I don't know if you need to like give us a little bit of a setup or you just want to jump into it. I do have a few
Okay.
images I can show.
So Tartarus number one, I'm doing it on the iPad because, like I said, I'm in this undisclosed location, wood fires and flowers and rum, and
There you go.
my physical copies are, oh thanks, are back at home. So I'm going to be reading it on the iPad. So Tartarus number one, we start off with you guys got to get this issue. It is so awesome. Shameless plug. Okay, so Tartarus number one, As Above, So Below, written by me, art by Jack Cole, letterer Jim Campbell, editor Stephanie Cook, designer Ben Didier, and the wordmark logo that you see is by Rian Hughes. Image Comics 2020. We have this wonderful map of the scene of where we're going to be, Baxtangerian War, ninth cycle, and where Tartarus is in this dark void. More on that later. And we're going to have a prison break, right? We're starting with the prison break. So we start off with a prison schematic.
Oh, very cool.
So Circa is starting from down here.
Interesting.
And she has to make her way all the way to the top if she's to break out of prison.
Good luck.
All right. Here's my voices. I don't know. I think I might do like a Clint Eastwood type thing for Circa.
I like it.
Right. Okay. The Pit, maximum security underground prison, 9 miles below Tartarus. And we start with Tons. He's a prison guard. He's kind of an inept dude. He's talking to his wife on the phone, or his partner. As above, Tons voice, I don't know. As above, so below. Stars in your belly, stars in the sky. Where'd you hear that, Tons? I read it in today's meal pack. The daily inspiration. There's a page, by the way.
Nice.
Those meals are barely passable as food. Now they're putting garbage in your head, too. I got you something. If you had any sense, you'd quit that place. That place is going to give you a heart attack. Did you hear? I said, I got you something. It's pretty, just like you. Did you steal it? Come on, baby, don't worry about that. You'll lose your job. You need that job, Tons. A minute ago, you wanted me to quit. Anyway, nobody's going to care. I got her off of Circa. Circa, the murderer? She's a maniac, Tons. She's a prisoner. And I say she don't need pretty jewelry. She's lucky I don't shoot her. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to Tons, who's coming up out of the bottom of the pit? It's Circa.
Uh-oh.
She look happy. All right. Come on, iPad. Come on, iPad. Don't fail me. Why don't you go to the next page? All right, guys, we have a little technical difficulty. Oh, here we go. Here we go. All right. Do not be alarmed. Here we go. We've got that. Okay.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Okay. That doesn't belong to you, Tons. Oh, my Clint Eastwood. That doesn't belong to you, Tons. I'm saving it for someone special. But I don't want to leave you empty-handed. I'll trade you. I'll take this, and you'll take my cell, the cold, dark place filled with flesh-eating worms. And Tons is like, Circa, please. She clocks him one, kicks him in the pit, and then she says, because I won't be needing it anymore. His wife is screaming, or his partner. I don't know what the gender of his partner is. Tons! Sublevel 8. 2 prison guards are walking along. They hear some sounds. Did you hear that? Probably just a compressor. Boom! Circa comes out of nowhere, smacks this guy's head into the wall, kicks the other one in the face. Oh no. So now Circa's going to the elevator switch, about to like snap the elevator and get up on out of here, right? Go up to the next level. Uh-oh. Damn it. Elevator switch is locked. Urgh! She's trying to get it unlocked. Freeze! Don't you move. Now she's on the walkie. Pit complex control. Come in, over. Reading you. Over. Got a fleeing prisoner on level 8. 1 guard down, requesting backup. Over. Shooter. On site. Over. Cut me a break, control. She's huge. I'll have to drag her carcass out of here around all shift. Can I shoot her at clock out? On site. Over. Copy that. Now the guard turns to Circa, who's in shadow. She can't tell it's Circa. All right, don't make this harder than it has to be. Step into the light. Now Circa steps into the light. She sees it's Circa, and Circa says, unlock the elevator, and I'll grant you a quick death.
Oh.
And she's freaked out. Circa opens fire, back on the walkie. Control, it's Circa. She's out of the pit. Meanwhile, the fire has released the elevator thing, and Circa says, thanks. Unlocking it.
Nice.
Control says, did you say Circa? Over? Send help. Over. Circa charges. I'm a woman of my word. As she charges over and she starts, giving it to our poor prison guard. Come in. Oh, all units en route. Over. En route. Over. What's the status? Over. They're calling to her, but they don't know that she's getting her what for handed to her. Circa gets into the elevator. She ascends to the next floor. Let me know if you need to cut it at any point. I was going to take it to a certain page count, but I know we went over. So let me know, Jake.
Whenever you want to stop, it's fine.
All right.
What page are we on right now?
I don't know. We got like maybe 4 or 5 more pages.
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. Now we are in another part of the prison. We've got Hisei Keita. She's a master of locks. She's on the phone talking to her mom. She's taking a break. She's having a lunch break in her quarters, on her phone with her mom. Bruxism. Yeah, it's just a fancy way of saying I grind my teeth. My job? Ha, nice try. Our family's far more stressful than running a prison. Sorry, Ma, I didn't mean that. How's Dad? I'll come over after my shift tonight, I promise. Weep, weep, weep. Alarms are now out. She's like, Ma, I got to call you back. Announcement, Master of Locks, report to Control Center. Circa has escaped the pit. I repeat, Circa has escaped. And she's not alone. Uh-oh. Circa's gotten a bunch of prisoners out of the Huskow. Now they're going to start some trouble. Okay. We got prisoners that are beating everybody's ass. They're trying to escape. Let's see. Okay. At this point, they're just saying that they're trying to take the magnetic cars up to the top of the prison complex. Yeah. Because as we saw on the map, it's a very far way up. But if they take these cars, they can get up to the top. So that's what's going on. They're talking. They have some talk. These mag transport lines go all the way to the top of the complex. Great. So stop John and get on. At this rate, we'll be home for breakfast. Make mine a double on the rocks.
Breakfast.
Okay, so as they control room, he says now in the control room, she's trying to take command of the situation. Everybody's freaking out. Status report. We've got 3 pacifiers en route. Pit complex control to mag pacifier. Have you engaged the escapees? Over. Mag pacifier. What's your status? Are the prisoners contained? Over. And then through the comm system, you hear the prisoners have taken over the comms.
Oh, man.
Circa the terrible, the unconquerable, the left-handed woman. Now he says, like, damn it, they've taken over the pacifiers. So now the prisoners are making their escape on the pacifiers, and they're taunting the guards through the comms. Nice. So I'll just read that straight away instead of the cutting back and forth. Circa, baptized in woe, tamer of Tartarus, smasher of bone, she is a dark moon, choking the light of your stars as your hopes drown in a well of never-ending sorrow. Then, meanwhile, this other prisoner is on there. He's freaking out. He doesn't know. It's a prison break. He doesn't want to get in trouble. Like, he's having second thoughts. He says, we'll never get out of here. Circa's second in command, Flip, is like, be careful. And Circa's like, get off my transport. Throws this dude right up onto the rails. And now Sliv is like, all right. And Circa's like, all right, we'll take the ascending corridor. Sliv's like, to the main pit complex? That's where the heavy defenses are. That guy was annoying, but he made a good point. I'm serious, Circa. Maybe there's a better... And Circa's like, we leave tonight, Sliv. Playing it safe means we die here. You rather die safe or live dangerously? Sliv's like, do I have a choice?